a lot of people compare like the creative process to like some sort of like spiritual experience. And it's like, how are you supposed to just snap into this creative mode, this spiritual experience?
Today on the pod, we have director Benoit Lalande. Most call him Ben, and he's renowned for his work in the world of surf and action sports.
It's dangerous to see your work as like an extension of yourself, because if it's not good, then you feel like you're not good. But then like if you make a banger, you feel like you're on top of the world and you're the best director out there.
Full of energy, contrast, and emotion, his most notable work has earned him 5 Vimeo staff picks. Though these days he's transitioned most of his filmmaking focus over to the commercial space.
Obviously surfing is amazing. It brings you to amazing places and allows you to meet incredible people. But nowadays it's not really what I do anymore.
Under Armour, Oakley, and Chipotle, Ben knows how to take his style and apply it to brands both big and small. In this episode, we break down his work and cover topics like the role of a commercial director, sticking to your vision, and how to avoid the all-too-feared creative burnout.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've like burned out before, but I feel like I've gotten close to it, where I just kind of lost that sense of like gratitude. And what solved it, I guess, was just like
I saw a video of you as a little boy holding a camera, and young Ben with a camera could choose to point it at anything. What made you decide to want to point it at surf, the action sports, and nature?
Yeah, it's funny you say this. I was like confused when I like saw the Frame Set account followed my personal account. I was like on Instagram. I was like, wait, what?
I was creeping.
Yeah, I saw it. Okay, now I know what video you're talking about. I think it's just like what there is to film, like what was interesting to film at the time. Like me and my buddies, like I said, we were just skateboarding back in the day, and they were way better than I was, and I just picked up the camera and started shooting them. And then I feel like that's usually how it goes. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are actually really good at the sports that they do, and then they pick up a camera. But I feel like in my case, like I picked up the camera because I wasn't up to par with the guys I was skating with. And yeah, I think like eventually that evolved into like other sports, but that's really how it happened, I guess.
That's so funny because I grew up skateboarding too, and I could never kickflip. I couldn't even ollie. Like I sucked compared to my friends. So in order to be cool, in order to do the thing that made me fit in, I would just film them with like a Canon G01.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that made me cool because every kid who skateboards wants to see video of them, landing the gap or kickflipping off the 5-stair.
Yeah, and the same thing happened when I got to college. I was like loving surfing, and that's all I wanted to do. And then I tried to join the surf club at my university, and I was like probably the worst surfer on it, like in the whole group. And so I was just like, oh, I happen to shoot also. And so I started shooting them, and that's how I got into shooting surfing. So yeah.
Yeah. But like I didn't stay with that stuff though. I kind of ventured out to do something different. What made you stick with the action sports and the surf?
I mean, I was really young at the time. Like I was still in school. I feel like a lot of people who are in the industry, they kind of get to this point where they have to like start making money, and they have to like start making career moves. And luckily I wasn't really there yet. Like I started shooting surfing when I was probably 18 or 19. And so I had the luxury to just like be in school and do like in my free time on the weekends, I could just do whatever I wanted to do. And so that happened to be shooting surfing and hanging out by the beach with friends and whatnot. And so it wasn't really a choice. I just kind of kept doing what I wanted to do.
Tell me about how your work like evolved, because I know you're accustomed to operating with the camera, right? In order to bring your ideas to life. But what does it mean to be a director today? And does that involve you still being behind the camera?
I guess. I mean, originally I was kind of doing everything like most people do when they get into this industry. I was editing, shooting, directing, doing absolutely everything. And then that was kind of what I did going into the industry. And I feel like I realized eventually that I kind of had to pick one thing, or I don't know. I feel like people say you have to pick one thing, but I think you could potentially pick more than one. And so I picked directing, and that's kind of what I've been doing and focusing on over the last few years. But I mean, every now and then when I'm shooting a passion project, or there's like a lower budget commercial that is happening, or I just want to be behind the camera, I still happen to pick up a camera and shoot myself. But lately it's been a lot of like B cam stuff. I have my own Bolex camera, and I've been shooting a lot of 16 millimeter with some of my favorite DPs on recent projects. And it's just been really fun, like not having to focus on gear and camera and film, and literally just having a little Bolex that I can like pop in and shoot with. And that's kind of what I do now.
Talk to me about like your view on a DP, because I feel like you so could have become a DP. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, I feel like now I don't consider it at all anymore, but I would say like,
yeah, why not?
I feel like I'm so far down not that far down the rabbit hole, but pretty far down the rabbit hole of directing. And it would just take me a lot to, I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible. If I wanted to become a DP, I definitely could, I think. I have the network to do it. And I think I could definitely make it happen, but I feel like it's so technical, and you need just so much experience with the gear and the equipment and the lighting to actually know what you're doing. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like 3 or 4 years ago, I was kind of like questioning my decision, and I was seeing all my DP buddies who were like super busy, because I feel like DPs, because they can just work on a gig and then move on to the next one, versus like directing, you need to spend like weeks on a project from like pre-pro to post-production. Right. I was a little jealous of my friends who were DPing, because they would just like they would always be so busy and make so much money and work on so many cool projects, whereas I only had like 1 or 2 projects as a director. And then I think at the time I was questioning it, but I think now I'm in a good position where it feels like I have a decent amount of work coming my way, and it's just fun to do what I do. So and also when I want to be behind the camera, like I said, I can still do it with like B cam stuff, or I don't know. So I feel like it's right now I found like the best of both worlds, I would say.
Yeah. Is there a moment throughout the process where you feel the most connected to your work?
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, like, I know when I'm doing my work, I like, for better or worse, I allow it to, like, represent me as a human. And
that's dangerous.
I don't know if you,
it's a double-edged sword.
It's dangerous sometimes. It is, but do you fall victim to that? And if so, like, how does it guide your decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I feel like this happens a lot in the editing bay for me, because I take a lot of pride in editing my own projects, or the projects I have a lot of stake into and that I'm most passionate about. And I feel like at the end of the day, the reason why I'm saying it's dangerous to see your work as like an extension of yourself is because if it's not good, then you feel like you're not good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, but then like if you make a banger, you feel like you're on top of the world and you're the best director out there, you know? And so it's, it can be really rewarding and make you feel good, but it can also make you feel a little shitty sometimes. And so I think it's one of those things where it needs to be a balance of feeling proud of what you do and everything, but also like not like kind of keeping the two a little distant from each other. Like you're you and your work is the work, and that's it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that can be really tough. I'm actually still trying to get there, you know? So you've gotten there?
I don't know. I feel like it's funny. I was thinking about this week. Like there's no such thing as like a destination in life. Sorry to get super just like get super deep philosophy there. But I feel like anything in life is about like consistently putting in the work. Like you never get to a destination. You're like, I'm there. Like say you want to be like healthy and fit. Like you don't, there's no amount of working out that you can do to like be healthy for the rest of your life. And I feel like the same thing applies to this. It's like, you constantly have to like remind yourself that that's how it should be. Like you should create distance between yourself and the work. Like it's not, to some extent it is connected, but you shouldn't always, I guess I'm mainly saying this when things go wrong. Like if you put out a shitty piece, you shouldn't feel like you're a shitty creative, you know?
Yeah, it's good. That's a good way to think about it, that there is no destination.
Yeah.
So most filmmakers know what a Vimeo staff pick is. They've been around since 2008. And I think being awarded one to this day is something of a badge of honor.
Totally.
You've got 5 of them. And I want to break this down a little bit because it interests me. Why do you think you have 5 Vimeo staff picks?
I don't know. I guess Vimeo staff likes my work. Honestly, though, I would say I feel like once you get one, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that just seems like how it usually goes is once you get one, it's a lot easier to get more after that. And so, not to like shit on my work right now, but I feel like there's staff picks that I got after my first one that like potentially weren't as good, but I feel like I kind of got them because I had that first staff pick.
Yeah.
But then I still feel really, really good about other pieces that came afterwards. And I was like, not that I was expecting to get a staff pick for those, but
right.
I don't know. They felt like that it was like the best I could do. And it was really amazing to know that Vimeo felt the same. But yeah, no, I feel like the other thing about those pieces is, I try to always keep like a very curated body of work, and I won't just like spam Vimeo with like a bunch of different like corporate commercial pieces or whatever. And I feel like I try to only upload to Vimeo when I feel like I've made something that's like very powerful and I'm really passionate about it. And those 5 pieces that you're referring to, the staff picks, like I feel like all of those were pure passion projects, you know, like I would take so much time to edit them and to shoot them and to think about them and do all these things. Like I wasn't on any sort of crazy deadline. They were just like from A to Z, it was just like my idea. I made it happen and I was so obsessed with it. And again, like it's kind of easy to like, I don't know, forget about this, but I feel like at least for me, it's like the editing time that really goes into this. It's like, if I feel like if I want to make a staff pick, I need to spend months on an edit and like, take breaks in between or editing sessions and, really look at it as like something that I'm doing for fun and not necessarily being on a deadline.
Yeah. I did a little research into like what makes like what the staff pick curators are looking for, right? And they seem to operate off these 4 pillars. One of them is like originality, you know, the voice or perspective that they're, you know, hasn't been heard before. And then there's like what they call exceptional craft. It pushes the medium as a whole to a new level. Engaging storytelling. It makes you ask questions or elicit authentic emotion. Diverse perspectives. It can engage like with a worldwide audience, right? And I just found that interesting as just to see like what the filter is, what the funnel is, and how they curate what's a staff pick and what's not a staff pick. And when I look at those 5 pieces that you've made, it seems to entail a bit of all those. And it makes me not surprised at all that Vimeo looks at the work that you're doing and wants to elevate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And this is just my opinion. Like, I don't necessarily think they have like a checklist for every video that they watch. And they're like, okay, does it meet this requirement and this other requirement, you know? But
sure.
I think it's all like a feeling. Like sometimes, and that's the thing with art in general is like, sometimes you can't even describe what it makes you feel, but it just is just, whoa, you know? And I think like, we always try to like boil things down to like a very specific set of like factors. And I feel like sometimes it's just like pure magic, and it just doesn't, like, the factors have nothing to do with
Yeah.
work, you know, it's just like, you just don't know how to explain it.
I feel like if a filmmaker were to sit down and look at those 4 pillars and set out to create a piece predicated on those 4 pillars, it probably wouldn't end up being a Steph pick.
Exactly. That's why it's always funny when you get agency briefs or like people ask you to make a project that's unique. Like, we want to make something unique. And it's like, what does that even mean?
What is that? What is that?
It's like, like the end result, but I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if there's such a thing as like going into a project with the intention of like being unique. Whatever you do can be unique, but like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird one.
I want to talk about like the technicals, you know, because you shoot a lot and you shoot a lot in the water. And I think that's a pretty specialized thing to be able to do, right? What do you think you know the best, or that you're really good at when it comes to shooting something as like sketchy as a huge wave?
Well, actually, it's funny you ask this, because I feel like I'm just not good at all shooting surfing in the water. Like, yeah, no, seriously, like there's way better surf cinematographers out there, like way better. And shooting surfing is just like, it's so hard, and you need, I don't know what you need, but some people just have it and they just know what they're doing, and they're just able to get in the zone repeatedly, consistently, and just get the shot every single time. And I can do that sometimes, but I'm not one of those top dogs that can just nail the shot every single time. And so I think in past surf films that I've made, it wasn't so much about the angle or the cinematography or whatever. I feel like it was a lot about like the idea going into the project, and the editing approach, and the music selection, and sound effects, and editing, and all those things combined. And I feel like that says a lot about just filmmaking in general. At least in my eye, I feel like you could have the absolute best shots out there, the best possible shots from the best DP ever. But if you didn't do proper pre-pro and had like a really strong concept and or storyline going into your project, and you don't have a good editor or music or sound effects or color or whatever, like, you're going to have the best shots, but it's not going to be a good piece. You know, to me, like pre-pro and post-production are just so important, like arguably more important than the actual production itself.
Yeah. Did you always believe that? Or is that something that you learned along the way as you started working?
I think you learn that along the way, because when you're outside of the industry, you fantasize so much about the actual process of shooting. You fantasize about the gear and holding the camera and all these things that people actually do on set. But like, honestly, those like the pre-pro and the post-production, like that's something that's just, it's so within reach for everyone, you know, but then everyone is focusing on like the thing that they don't have, which is like actually being on set, you know? And
right.
Not to say that it's not an important part of the process. Obviously it is, like, you need to get the shot, but to me, it's like so much more about pre-pro and post-production.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Cause I know you do a good bit of commercial work as well. Mm-hmm. What's it like pitching? How often are you writing pitches and making treatments? Yeah,
I guess when it comes to actual like agency briefs and pitching for like big commercial projects, I feel like with where I'm at in my career, it probably happens, I want to say like once every other month, or like maybe once a month. But then when it comes to like passion projects and direct to brand stuff, like I'm always writing treatments and putting together inspo and writing ideas down and sending that to brands, and working directly with like cool, for example, outerwear brands, or in the past, like surf brands. And so I have this thing where whenever I have like a project that I really want to do, like an idea or like a spec idea or passion project, whatever, I'll like pretend like I'm actually being tasked to write a commercial treatment for that idea. And sometimes that just helps me bring that idea to the finish line and actually make it happen myself. And sometimes like you make that treatment and you just let it sit for like 3 months, and then like you get hit up by like an agency or production company for exactly that project. And so you have all your ideas
Nice.
ready. So it's really good to do that exercise and have your ideas kind of like organized and have decks that you like developed ideas into. I don't know, just something I do.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, on that, what are some of the resources you use? Like, what are some like secret tricks that you have when it comes to making a really good treatment?
Frame set.
That was not a plug. You did not need to do that.
No, I actually, for treatments that I just use, I mean, when we do bigger commercial treatments, I'm not in charge of like designing the deck whatsoever.
Oh, cool. You're not even designing it.
No, exactly. So we have like we'll hire like there's like companies out there that they're literally like treatment design companies. Like all they do is they just put or like design the treatments. And it's really cool working with those guys, and it kind of like helps you focus on the actual content of the deck, which is like what you should be focusing on as a director. Like you shouldn't really have to focus on like finding the references and putting everything together nicely with text and titles, images, whatever. So it's always nice when we're able to work with those companies. And then sometimes like production companies have like internal graphic designers or whatever, so they're able to help you out with that also. But otherwise, yeah, I just like put that together myself. And when that happens and I'm on my own, I just use Google Slides. I have like a couple templates that I use. And then what I do is I'll just like, I'm like obsessed with keeping my favorite videos on Vimeo like organized in folders and Google Chrome tabs and whatnot. And so I have like endless folders of like inspiration. And so sometimes like when I get hit up for like, for example, it's like an automotive project. Well, I have like an automotive folder with like all my favorite references. And then I'll open that whole folder, watch all the pieces. And like for this project specifically, I'll like save like 6 or 7. I'll download them to my computer, and then I'll like export screen grabs and GIFs just from Premiere. And then that's what I use as like inspiration. But I think like as a director, knowing all these references like the back of your hand is so key. Like it's sometimes like the times I feel most lost in pre-production is when I need to seek out like actual video references that I haven't found yet. Like I love just being able to like pull one of my folders that I'm always adding to and be like, okay, this is so easy. I'm going to use this piece, this idea, whatever, and piece things together.
Yeah.
Not to say that like you can't come up with ideas yourself. Like obviously that's like a big part of the process, but I think like you always want to have references, and you always want to show people you're pitching to like what your idea could look like, or like what an idea you're pitching looks like, you know?
Yeah. Because, you know, we know what the image should look like in our heads, but you got to show that to other people, right? And other people aren't necessarily in your head. So it is so helpful to have references in order to do that.
Yeah. And also sometimes you don't have the ideas in your head, and watching that inspiration helps you come up with those images. You know?
I mean, what would you consider the role of a commercial director to be when they're on set?
You're always looking for solutions. Like there's, maybe this isn't the right way to look at it, but I feel like as a director, you're a really good problem solver. You're like really creative in your problem solving. And I feel like in pre-pro, it's easy to fantasize about like these shots. It's like you have this shot list and it's very specific, and it's like this shot's going to look like this other shot's going to look like this. But then like in reality, it's like, oh shit, like producer is about to like rip my head off because we're like 2 hours behind, and like the light doesn't look good, and my like the freaking person I'm shooting is not being like, it's not really easy shooting with that person. They're not really giving me like the energy that I would want out of them. So it's like, how do you still get the shot with all these factors, you know? And it's like creative problem solving.
Yeah.
So that's like number one, I would say. I feel like also, and I feel like it's good because back in the day, like I feel like, and I'm sure this still happens all the time, and I know for a fact it does, but directors, I feel like, especially back in the day, where like you could be a dick, and again, even today, you can be a dick, and as long as you're talented, it's all good. But I feel like, not to say that I'm always like the nice guy or whatever, but I feel like also like being like really talkative and like interested in people and talking to them and being nice to them, like preserving like good energy on set and leading everyone through that is so key. Like your energy as a director is going to affect the entire production, everyone else. Like if you have good energy, like people are probably going to be way more down to work OT and do like get this extra shot that wasn't on the shot list and we didn't account for. Like it's just, so again, like creative problem solving is number one, but I feel like also like having like really good energy around everyone and preserving that and leading people through that is really, really key. At least for me.
No, I totally get that. It absolutely, the energy absolutely trickles down from the top. Do you like being on set?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like being on set is actually like the easy and fun part about it all. Like when things get frustrating and hard is in pre-pro and post-production. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to this, and there are for sure, but like on set, like it's just fun. Like the plan's already made, you know what you're doing. There are problems every now and then. Obviously, like I said, you're always problem solving, but like to some extent, everything's already figured out. Like you've figured out the money with your producer, everyone's booked, like all the locations, you know what you're shooting, everything. Like it's just play at that point. You're just playing with the gear and the people you're shooting with versus like before that in pre-production, like there's so many issues that pop up and budget is an issue, locations, lighting, whatever. And then once everything's shot, post-production, like then those are like the final issues, potentially the most important ones that pop up. And it's like, oh my God, this edit doesn't work. This music doesn't work. Right. I feel like the actual shooting of it all is just, I don't know. It's just fun and easy.
Yeah. You mentioned how much you love to edit and how important the edit process is to you. Do you find yourself like choosing to edit projects when you don't have to because of that?
No. And actually I would say editing sucks. Like it really sucks. Yeah.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah. But like, you know how I like to compare it to this is like, you know how like working out, it's not something that like, you're like, I love working out, but it's like when you do it and after it's done, you're like, oh my God, that was so worth it. And like, I was actually able to like find joy in the process and it was like a whole mental battle or whatever. And I feel like editing is the same thing where like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating editing, at least for me. I mean, I'm sure there's editors out there. They're just like,
I hate it.
Love it.
I can relate to you, brother.
they love it and it's easy and it just flows. But for me, like I'll spend, especially on passion projects, I'll spend months, literal months, like working 10 hours a day, just being in front of the computer and trying different songs for an edit and trying different, like piecing the VO together like differently and moving things around, and then it doesn't work, and then this clip shift the whole thing, whatever. And yeah, it's not the funnest thing, but I would say that sometimes when things are working out, like after like editing, because you'll have like 5 editing sessions and you won't get anything done, and then like editing session number 6, like for whatever reason you'll be like in a good mindset and things will just happen for you, then that feels really, really, really good. Like you'll be in front of the computer and like you won't be able to like watch your edit enough. You just love it so much. Like you're just watching and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. I just want to keep going and keep adding clips or whatever. And so that's the part of editing that feels good, is when things go right. But a lot of times like it's just frustrating.
Dude, I couldn't relate to you more than right now. because I know that I'm a good editor. Like I can get it done and I trust myself like I trust no one else. But my God, am I slow? My God, does it take me forever? Am I editing it 3 times over?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of those things where I know, like personally, I know I need to take my time editing, but it's like this fine line of like, are you procrastinating or are you actually like evaluating different options and kind of getting things done without getting them done anyway? Because like, again, like with editing, it's so like non-linear. And so it's like, are you actually contributing to that non-linear process or are you just procrastinating? And it's like a very fine line between the two, because like you can be watching like your timeline over and over again without actually like trying to put clips on the timeline and trying different things. And I feel like that's where the work actually gets done, is by like actually trying to like put sound effects on the timeline and clips and trying different things. Whereas like you can get stuck just like watching your thing, like just replaying the timeline over and over and over again for hours without getting actually like any work done. So
yeah, I mean, have you been able to find any like consistency in your schedule? You know, like I just want to talk about your schedule as a human real quick. You know, how do you manage that? And is there homeostasis at all within it?
yeah, I would say I'm a big routine guy. Like I like to wake up early and like get a workout in, read, journal, like do a bunch of things to get my mind in the right space to get things done, you know? And I feel like sometimes without those routines, like it's kind of hard to just jump into a project, you know? It's like, I mean, a lot of people compare like the creative process to like some sort of like spiritual experience. And it's like, how are you supposed to just snap into this creative mode, this spiritual experience? Like you kind of have to like, I don't know, like, I don't know how I'd put this. It's like, you kind of have to do the right thing so that it like promotes creativity within you. And I don't know, it kind of takes you to this like other level or whatever. And so I guess, I mean, in terms of schedule, like sometimes I even think about this. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm not doing anything. Like sometimes I think about like people who actually have like 9-to-5 jobs or like working at like a restaurant or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, these people are actually working like so many hours throughout the day. Obviously it's like a very different type of work, but I feel like with this kind of work that we're doing, right? Like with directing or editing or whatever, pre-production, those types of things, like you, at least, and I'm speaking for myself here, I feel like you have so much free time in a way. And also like, because it's a non-linear process, like sometimes you need to like step away from the computer for like hours or days or whatever. It's very non-linear. And I feel like sometimes I just have like so much time on my hands and I need to like find things to do during that time. And I think it's healthy to actually do that, because if you're just every day showing up, like if you're working like 5 days a week, I mean, I do that. Like most weeks I work 5 days a week, but then like after working for like 4 months, I'll take like 2 months off or something. Even some days I'll be like, oh, like I'll edit for like 3 hours and then I'll be like done for the day, because I just can't, I'm just not productive anymore. And it's like, I think having that, it sucks because like having that luxury sometimes is almost like necessary.
Do you think taking those moments of silence, I guess is what we'll call them, helps avoid burnout? Are you ever afraid of burnout?
I wouldn't call it silence. I would call it play. I feel like playing is so key.
Ooh,
like,
I like that better.
Regardless of what you do, like whether, I mean, I know here we're talking about the creative process, but like literally anything. Like if you're working in a restaurant or you're a lawyer or whatever, like sometimes the notion of play is so like overlooked and you just forget about it. And you forget that at the end of the day, like a Homo sapien, you're like a freaking monkey, you know, you're like a meat sack with all these like other desires and things that you need to do to be like fulfilled. And
yeah,
obviously in today's society, like it's our world is like completely different, but at the end of the day, we're still a freaking monkey, you know, that has like all these needs and these other things that they need to do. And like literally like going for a run or like going, just playing with somebody or like whatever it is. I think is so key. Like it's a need that needs to be fulfilled. And kind of going back to your question about like burning out, like, I mean, I wouldn't say I've like burned out before, but I feel like I've gotten close to it where I had just lost all passion for what I was doing. And like, I was just so not like, I just kind of lost that sense of like gratitude. And what solved it, I guess, was just like rediscovering that notion of play and like that free time and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite way of play right now?
I really like to run. Surfing is amazing. Snowboarding when there's snow. Traveling is probably the best way, honestly. And like also just like hanging out with friends, like literally just like talking smack and having fun and not talking about anything serious is just like, it's essential. You need that, you know? And I'm all about surrounding myself with people who inspire me and like, are a reflection of like who I want to become. But at the end of the day, like, I think it's regardless of who you hang around with, like, it's good to just like, I don't know, not take yourself too seriously sometimes and literally just hang out, you know? I also love to read, journal. Those are like two big things that I love to do.
Are your friends into film as well, or are you the only one?
For me, it's not even about like having friends who are in the industry. I mean, obviously it's like helpful and it's great because like you can collaborate on projects together and you can talk about the industry together, whatever. And hopefully that helps you like become a better creative. But also I think like, to me, like creativity is like one of many aspects of my life, and like directing is one of many aspects of my life. And like, for example, like I'm very passionate about like business and like investing and real estate and personal finance and everything. And so like, I believe that, I guess what I'm trying to say with this is like, I don't necessarily want all my friends to be like in film or like in the industry, you know, like I have friends who are like super into real estate and others who are into like private equity and other people who are into like commercial directing and other are like editors and some of them are surfers. And I think it's good to like surround yourself with people who like each person kind of touches on like one thing that you like or one thing that you aspire to become or do. So
I know for me, it helps me be a better filmmaker if I'm able to put myself in a multitude of different settings around different people. It helps me like with how I approach the world in my filmmaking.
Totally.
Okay, I want to get into something here. With each episode, I like to try and get into your head a little bit. You know, I think every filmmaker, every creator has these tendencies, these creative impulses. And I like to look at your body of work and maybe pick out what I think some of those are, present them to you, and then you tell me maybe where they come from. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. Because I know that a lot of these things sit back there, but I want to dig a little bit.
Let's dive in. Let's do it.
All right, Ben. I noticed that in just about every single piece of your work, at least the piece of the work that I've seen, there's like these flashes and bursts, a moment of breath, slow motion, and then bang, this flash. It creates this rhythm. I see it a lot. You see it a lot. It's not new, but I love it, and you use it very well. You know, can you just tell me what that does for you in your work and why you do it so often?
Yeah, you definitely put your finger on something there. I feel like that's definitely something I do, maybe too much. I don't know. I feel like, and again, maybe like nowadays people do more of that, but I feel like a few years ago, or like up until a few years ago, like people would just use like, in a lot of pieces that I would see, people just use like regular sound effects for like what they would. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like you would like see a clip of like a freaking giraffe and they would look up like giraffe sound effect. And it's like, how can you like apply some sort of creativity to that? Like, what if like your giraffe sound effect was like a freaking like avalanche and it's like, you know, and like, and so I feel like the whole sound thing, like you're talking about like flashes and clicks and breaths, like I guess, and obviously there's like two parts to this, right? There's like the sound component and then the visual component, because flashes are also like a visual thing, but a lot of it is conveyed through sound. And I feel like, yeah, it's all about like, to me, whenever I have a clip, I don't really think about like what's physically in front of me, like what's the clip I'm looking at. I'm like, what's the best possible sound that will work with this clip, you know? And it's like, oh my God, like if I have this clip that just feels like, it's more about like a feeling. It's not really about like what you see, like the texture, the visual. It's more about like the feeling of the clip. And so if you have like a clip that's like, I don't know, there's like a very satisfying movement in it, or like it's like a relief or something. It's like, I don't know, sometimes like a breath like is just like so cool. And I feel like I really, I mean, anyone will see this when they go through my pieces. Like I love having a style that's like a little bit more like mysterious. That sounds so lame. It's just kind of, but keeping things like dark and mysterious and tense. And I feel like sometimes having some like badass breath sounds or flashes or like impacts and cracking is just like, it kind of helps you convey that emotion. And yeah, I feel like the flashes, like visually, it just adds intensity, and obviously it's like way overdone in the industry, but I feel like sometimes there's nothing like a good flash, you know, it just like, boom, it just blindsides you. It's so good.
Next one.
I'm so curious about what, oh my God, okay.
All right, so we're talking mixed media here.
Yes.
VHS, the film look. Sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes it's not so subtle. You know, this mixed media aesthetic in your work is, I see it often, and I want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like this has been happening on this planet for like thousands of years, but it's like you have these like amazing like artists or psychologists or whatever, like people who like write or make art, and people will like try to like boil things down and like analyze their techniques and like figure out some sort of like consistency in their work to like explain it and figure out the meaning and everything. And like, I feel like in art sometimes like there's just, I mean, it sucks to say, and obviously sometimes there is a lot of meaning, but sometimes there's just no meaning whatsoever. It's just like, this looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like this is epic. And so I feel like, yes, like I could sit here and try and explain to you like, oh, like VHS conveys a vintage look and it's this and that, but like, yeah, sure. But to me, it just looks cool. And if it works in the edit, then like, I'll just have it in there. And then I feel like sometimes it's just cool for variety. For me, it's all about like variety. It's like, if you're always looking at the same thing, it's like, you need to switch it up sometimes. So I guess that's like, as far as I'll go into like the meaning of that, it's just like, let's just add variety. And again, it's like variety for like sounds and visuals. Cause like, if I have like a VHS sound, then like right before it, I can have like a little VHS glitch and it goes like, and then, you know, I mean, everyone does that, but it's just cool. And obviously it's like super overused. I'm not going to lie. It's just like everyone does this, but I like to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think we'd use it if it wasn't sick, if it wasn't awesome. You know what I mean? I want to talk about contrast in general. I would consider you to be something of a master of contrast in a multitude of ways, right? Like, what do you think prompts you to load up on the ink at this level?
I don't know. It just looks cool. Like, I hate to give like cool, boring answers, but
that's
like,
a fair
I make
answer.
it sound like it's devoid of meaning. I mean, it's not. Like, and I feel like especially when you're like telling stories or you have like just really cool music and a cool concept going to it, like you can use contrast to help with the story or the intensity of the edit, whatever. I think it definitely conveys an emotion, but I think also it just looks really cool. And I think, I mean, I don't know, I really love black and white also. And I think the contrast between like black and white and very like punchy, saturated colors is really cool. It's just something I like to do and I've always done. And yeah, and I think sometimes I try to like, I like to go like beyond what people would do color wise. Like I feel like we're just so used to seeing like colors as they are, and at the end, like at some point it just like boring. It's like, oh, like, I mean, this is a great piece, but like they could have done something else to like spice it up. So sometimes it's just cool to like just get weird with the colors, and if people like it, great. If not, no, like it's all good, but I like to do it.
I like your fearlessness when it comes to that. I think it's really cool. Like, especially with this film for Roxy, you know, you do go back and forth. You've got like a total black and white shot. And then next to it, something so saturated, and going back and forth between those. Yeah, I just find it's beautiful. It's interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was a very special piece.
Let's talk about that piece a little bit.
My latest film, Obibini, this passion project that I shot in Ghana is definitely very special, and I think I'm always going to look back at that project feeling like a sense of just like love and gratitude. You know, it's just like so. I never thought I'd be able to just go to Africa for a week and shoot film with like a bunch of friends and make like a cool film. And find like a really incredible story out there. It's like, what are the odds of that happening? And also like the people out there, like it was just all for like a really good cause. Like, I mean, for the people who haven't seen it, it's basically a story about, I mean, it's very short. It's like a 3 to 4 minute film, but it basically talks about this group of girls who overcame these cultural barriers, and they did that through surfing. And we just shot a bunch of film of them surfing and going about their day, and recorded some VO bites about them, like talking about their childhood and the challenges that they faced, kind of getting into surfing and having to like present that to their families and whatnot. And it was just really beautiful. And the people out there in Ghana are just incredible and so courageous and fun and loving and talented. And it's just like such a great vibe out there. And so also like seeing the feedback that I've gotten after that edit, not necessarily just regarding like the style of the piece or the editing, whatever, like the feedback about like the story and me highlighting something like that was like really cool to see that people were actually like resonating with the story itself. So yeah, there's definitely that one. That was like a very special project.
Yeah, I gotta know, what was the brief like on a project like this? How open was it for you to just kind of let Ben do Ben's thing?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the boring answer, but there's no brief. This was this.
Wow, that's great.
And it's one of those things where, I mean, this is like, I don't know, people. As a director, you almost always, not always, but like a lot of directors do this, where like they'll take a passion project that they did or like a spec, and they'll try and like just blow it up as like this big project and make it look like a big brief. And like in the case of this project, it's like, oh my God, this was like a huge Roxy campaign, and they paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars to have like a big film crew on this. And the director thought about the story for months and put together this amazing treatment and brief or whatever. And it was nothing like that. Like, we approached Roxy, we could convince them to give us a little bit of money. We went out there, and this trip, so the making of this film, like that week that we were there to shoot it, originally that was going to be like a scout or like a scouting mission. We were just going to bring like some 16mm cameras and just like get some extra footage for like a project like down the road. And then we just ended up shooting so much film and capturing like so many incredible voiceover bites. And we met so many incredible people. And like, turns out like, I mean, it would have been great to do pre-interviews, but like, turns out like the girls out there were just like so ready for us. And we just sat down with them and like recorded them, and they just gave us everything we would have needed for a project. And so wow, we like came back from that like scout mission, and we just had like, I mean, I didn't really know at the time, like I wasn't exactly sure like what we had and if we'd be able to make a proper film. Originally, we were just going to make like 60-second cut for Roxy, and that was going to be it. But then like, as I was editing, I kind of figured out that we had a lot more footage and there's potentially something there. And so I just kept editing, tried different things with like the voiceover, spent months in the editing bay just trying different things. And then eventually I felt like I landed on something good, and we got a music composer on board and a little bit of a post team, and put it out in the world, and the rest is history. So yeah, very special project.
Yeah, it sounds like a dream project for someone like yourself.
I feel like if, especially as a director, I mean, again, this applies to literally everyone in the world. Like, doesn't have anything to do with filmmaking or anything. Like, if you just sit around and just wait for opportunities to come your way and for things to happen, like, nothing's going to happen. And this is so important in the directing space. It's like, well, I guess to backtrack here, like, for me, the most important pieces in my experience, and the pieces that have actually added to my portfolio like massively and have like gotten my name around, were the projects where like I would take all the initiative and I would just make it happen, and I would just take months to make it happen, literally do absolutely everything. And I feel like sometimes for most people it would just be like so daunting to just like sit there and be like, oh my God, here's all these things I have to do to make this happen. Like, I don't even know if this is going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about determining what drives you as a filmmaker.
Yeah, what drives me? To be honest, I mean, I feel like it's such a deep personal question. Like, yeah. I feel like for me, the dream project for me is and you kind of nailed it right there. Like, that project was a dream project for me. And at the time I didn't even know it. I mean, I kind of did. I mean, going to Africa to shoot film with a bunch of buddies is a dream situation. But at the end of the day, like, I didn't know if all that would pay off and we'd actually be able to do something. I didn't even know it was a dream, but I didn't know if it was going to be a dream project, you know?
Yeah. What was the edit like for that one? Like, what did Roxy say when you sent it to him?
I love that you asked that question, because they're like, oh, it's cool. It's funny because like so many people like personally reached out to me after that project came out, and they're like, Ben, you have no idea, like, this is your best project ever. Like, you have no idea, like, this is so good. Like, the world needed this piece. Like, I'm so happy you made this, and this is such an amazing positive message for the world, and this is so great. The edit's great, the music's great, whatever. And then Roxy was just like, oh yeah, it's cool. And I don't even know if they posted it. I think they like shared it, but like we basically made like a little social cut for them, and that's what they posted. And I think, yeah, I was like pretty baffled, but I mean, it's pretty classic. It's like, it's what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Out of a client. I mean, Roxy's great. Don't get me wrong. They're a great company. They supported the project. Not have anything bad to say about it. But like in general, like, I mean, people love to talk shit about their clients, and that's not what I'm here to do. But I don't know. I feel like it's pretty standard for clients to like not, and I'm not talking about Roxy here specifically, but I feel like it's pretty classic for clients to like, I mean, at the end of the day, that's why they hire production companies, is like, they don't really know what's cool. They don't really know what they want to do. And so they hire people to like do that for them. And so obviously, I mean, some people at those companies are going to be able to tell if something is good or if something is not. But I feel like once you reach a certain level, it's like, it doesn't really matter what goes into the piece. It's like, oh yeah, it's cool. We like it. But it's not like, I don't know, you kind of reach a cap where it's like, it could be freaking amazing or just good. And to them, it's like the same.
It's like, what do you need in order to feel like it was a good project? You know what I mean? Sometimes I feel like I don't need anyone to sign off. I know it's something good, but sometimes it's also helpful for the powers that be. You know, it's also like, you know, how much investment did they have on the project? Do you think their interest level, their feedback level goes up the more invested they are, whether financially or not?
I mean, I guess it's like case by case, but I feel like there's sometimes the people with the least budget are like the most hands-on, and it sucks, you know? And but then again, like, I could see how like a company spending like millions on a spot would like be super hands-on also. And so yeah, I guess it's case by case.
I like to end with a few big questions.
Let's get deep.
Let's get deep, dude. What's the hardest part of your job for you? Like, what are you not good at but have to do every project? And then how do you manage that?
Ooh, what am I not good at?
Yeah, what does Ben suck at?
I mean, there's many things I'm trying to improve upon in my creative practice. You know how earlier I was talking about like preserving like a good energy on set?
Yeah.
I feel like what I've learned a lot over the last few years in like commercial directing is like not taking no for an answer. And I feel like as a director, you have to remind yourself of that, because like there is going to be, again, so many problems and challenges that are going to pop up over the course of a production. And if you just sit there and you're like, oh shit, okay, like we have to pivot here. Like, oh, okay, like we don't have the budget for this. Like, I guess we can't do X, we can't shoot on film, we can't do that, whatever. And if you just like go with those problems and you react to them by like finding another solution and deviating like subconsciously from your initial direction, like that's the worst thing you can do. And I feel like what I've learned over the last few years is like, actually, like if a producer tells you that you don't have budget for X, whether it's shooting film or a camera car or whatever, it's like, no, we do have budget. We'll find the budget. Like, let me see your spreadsheet. Let's move things around. And say it's something about like shoot times. Like we have to shoot sunrise and sunset, but then like they can't figure it out production wise. Like it just doesn't work. It's like, I can't not shoot sunrise and sunset. We have to do it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and agree with you that it's not possible. It is possible. We'll find a way to make it work. And I feel like now I'm getting like way better at it, but I feel like early on in my commercial directing practice, I would just like be like, oh shoot, okay. And like kind of look at the producer as like the end all be all for like answers or just like problems, like kind of listening to them. And again, like, I guess not to say that like you need to like battle your producer or like whoever is like hindering your ideas or preventing you from actually achieving your creative vision. It's not a battle. It's like a cooperative effort. And I think that's why like having producers that you're very familiar with and that you get along with and who are friends at the end of the day makes that process so much easier, because it's not about like you're already friends. Like you're trying to work on this together. And even if
right,
a little rude or like you're whatever, it's like, we're just friends and I know how this person reacts and this is how it's going to be and it's all good. You know, we're figuring it out. But again, I think like not taking no for an answer. I think that's like the biggest thing is like, you always have to remember to like stick to your creative vision. It's so important. Like that shot, if you're not, I mean, obviously sometimes it's like a fine line, right? Like you can get like that shot, like 99%. Like, are you really going to spend like an extra hour to get like that 1% that's missing? Maybe not sometimes, but like, if a producer is like trying to get you to shoot it at like 50% of what your creative vision looks like, it's like, no, dude, like I need it to be at least 85% of what I'm picturing it. So I don't know. That's something I'm trying to work on.
That's good, dude.
Try to improve. Yeah.
No, that's really good. That's really good, because it's easy, I think, to want to, especially when you have so many people under you, to want to be agreeable and to make so many other people happy. But then, you know, what suffers if you do that? The whole thing everyone's trying to make suffers. Exactly. You know, it's like oftentimes the solution is there. We just got to like put a little more energy into finding that solution, because I mean, you know, you say yes to one thing, you say no to another, or no to 5 things if you say yes to this one thing. But I think it's so important to look at like what percentage do I think this shot is at currently? It's in that I want it to be at. And can I deal with losing 15% on it if it means getting these 3 other shots? Mm-hmm. Or maybe like we get rid of these 3 other shots if this is the shot I need to be 99.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I feel like as a director, like you really, to some extent, you really need to understand your producer's perspective. It's like, it's easy early on as a commercial director to just be like, okay, like we're getting this shot right now and it's taking like we're 2 hours over right now, and it's all good. We're taking the shot because it's on the shot list and we have to get it. And then your producer is freaking furious because like you're way behind, you know? And it's like, you really have to like work together on like budget and timing and everything, because at the end of the day, like if you don't, then like things are just not going to work out. So I think having that producer mindset, and like I personally love to like dig into the budget with a producer, like sitting down and like seeing things, like where the money is going. And again, it's like, it's not what a director usually does, but I think it's really helpful in like achieving that creative vision, like figuring out where the money's going and what the timing looks like and whatnot.
What are you wanting to do creatively that you haven't tried yet?
Ooh, I like that question. Well, I guess if we're confined to the theme of commercial directing, I really want to start doing more.
We're not.
No, but I'll start with that and then I'll expand to something else.
Okay.
I guess if we just talk about commercial directing, I'm planning on doing a lot more automotive stuff. I think that's just like the natural progression from what I'm doing already. So yeah, whether that's a spec or an actual spot. And then more beverage stuff. So whether that's like alcohol, spirits, beer, that's something I'd like to do. I think if we step out of the commercial directing space for a little bit, I think like anything in life can be creative, and I think like anything can be a creative practice. And for whatever reason, I've always thought about like writing books. Like I've always loved to write. Like I always journal, and like when I was in high school and college, like I was like, I thought I was like a good writer. At least I had a few teachers tell me so. And so I feel like it's something I actually enjoy doing. And yeah, like I guess that is a creative practice, just writing. And so I think like writing books when I'm like 40 and I've retired from commercial directing, I can just sit on the beach and write books. And yeah, I don't know what else. I've always been very passionate about music. And I kind of made the decision early on to focus more on filmmaking. And I feel like music is always something that's like, oh man, like I wish I did more of it, or I would take the time to like learn how to do X or whatever. And so I don't know. It's funny, like people always assume, well, people identify and plan out their lives based on what they currently do. It's like I'm a doctor, or like I'm a lawyer, and like that's me. Like really? Like who are you? You're not a lawyer. You're you know? And so I feel like the same thing applies to me, to everyone. It's like I enjoy commercial directing right now. It's freaking amazing. Like the lifestyle, the things I get to do, the travels I get to go on, like the people I get to meet, this lifestyle that I have, for me right now, it's amazing. I love it. I'm so grateful for it. But like, I don't think it's like necessarily what defines me, at least the work portion of it. And so if in 10 years, and it's funny, like I told someone this recently, they were shocked. I was like, if in 10 years I'm like a real estate agent, like, so be it. If that's what I want to do, then all good, you know? Like if I want to be like a private equity investor or like write books in 5 years, then so be it. Like if I'm doing it, it's because I want to do it. And it's like, as long as you're doing what it is that you want, then great. You know, I don't think we should necessarily walk into these like career paths that are like completely unflexible. And, you know, I think like the world is
that approach. God, I love that. I love that, dude. Like I'm a few days away sometimes from just being a woodworker, you know,
dude,
or someone who collects rocks.
Listen to those voices.
It's good to have hobbies. I have so many hobbies. Sometimes I've actually had to like, especially during COVID, my life was just my hobbies. And then I just wasn't like making anything anymore, like in terms of a living or a wage. And it got to a point where it's just like, I can't just let my life be hobbies. You know, it's time to get back to work.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you've ever run into seasons like that, but.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes like you really need to again, I feel like as a creative, at least in my position right now, I have a lot of free time. I feel like a lot of creatives have a lot of free time, and you need to figure out what you do with that free time. And again, you can have hobbies, but it's like, is it a constructive hobby? Because there are hobbies that are horrible for you. Like during COVID, I mean, I've always been like pretty big into like video games, like early on. That's kind of how I got started into all this with like editing and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I kind of got back into video games around COVID, and like after a few months of it, I just like snapped out. I was like, oh my God, I love to do this, but this is so not good. Like I should not be doing this. Like I have so much time on my hands. I'm so young. I have all this potential. Like why am I spending hours in front of the screen, not actually creating anything? I'm literally just like wasting time right now. But yeah, then again, you can have hobbies that you actually enjoy doing, but they're constructive. It's like, if you like to read, like reading is amazing. Like if you have good books and you read good books, like it does wonders for the brain and for your creative mind. It's amazing. I think like really asking yourself, like, is what I'm doing in my free time to just like wind down, like is that actually propelling me forward? You know?
Yeah.
Is a good question to ask.
All right, Ben, I'm out of questions. I like want to ask you, what question should I ask you? Like, what's on your heart? The ball is in your court here.
Ooh. That's a really good question.
I feel like I'm missing something, right? What am I missing?
I love to get deep and talk about like just life and whatnot. And I feel like, again, I mentioned reading. I feel like books are an amazing resource. And so I feel like I have like so many amazing books that I read over the last few years that I feel like a lot of people can benefit from. And a lot of people just kind of sit there and like, oh, I don't like reading. Reading is boring. And it's like, oh my God, dude, you have no idea how much you could gain from like going into your mind, you know? So I don't know.
Well, I don't read, and I know that I should. So what are those books so I can write them down and read them? Yeah,
well, it really depends on, I feel like sometimes certain books are really good at a certain moment in your life. Like you'll be going through some stuff and then you'll find this book and it's just going to be the perfect match. Like that book that you're reading is like exactly what you needed in that moment. And so like whatever I recommend now might not necessarily work for everyone, but I feel like overall it's just some like stuff that people should read universally. It's like so good. I think some of my favorite books are The Power of Positive Thinking, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is like a personal finance book, but it's so amazing. It's so good. That's a must read for everyone.
So down for that one.
Especially, I mean, that's something that so many creatives overlook is like, for a creative to be successful, you need to be really good at business and finance to some extent and marketing and everything. And not to say that Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about all those concepts, but I feel like it's such an incredible book. Like it's so key for anyone, whether you're in the creative industry or not, you know?
Yeah.
But if I could just like narrow it down to one, I think like The Power of Positive Thinking is everything. It's like, I feel like you can go down some like pretty gnarly dark rabbit holes if you don't intentionally make yourself think positively. And I think positive thought has such an impactful, is so impactful when it comes to your life. I think your thoughts are a direct reflection of your reality. Like whatever you decide to think about, because your thoughts are a choice to some extent. You can decide to take over your thought process, which is amazing. It's so freeing to think about that. You can decide what thoughts are in your mind. And I think whatever you think about is what's going to be reflected in your reality. So if it's like, I mean, again, it's like, it's kind of cheesy. People talk about like the law of attraction or whatever, but I feel like that those are things that are totally real. And it's like, the power of the mind is so incredible. And it's like, whatever you think about, whatever you think is real is going to be real to you. Whatever you believe in is going to be real. So it's like, what do you want to be real? Do you want like the fact that you don't like someone to be real? Or like, do you want the fact that like everyone's a beautiful human being to be real, you know? It's like, or like, do you want to be successful, or like, do you think like you suck and like you're not good at what you do? It's like whatever you decide to think, whatever thoughts you decide to have in your mind are what's actually going to be reflected in reality. So I feel like that book really unlocked that in me. And I feel like, especially over the last like year, because I read that book about a year and a half ago, like, it's just preserving a good mindset has been great. And again, it's one of those things where like, it's never a destination. Like there's no amount of positive thinking you can do to forever have a positive mind. It's always an intention. It's always something that you have to train, you know? So there's no destination. That's how I'm going to end this podcast.
I think that's a great ending. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your book recommendations. The way we ended it was very philosophical, and I love that.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Ben. Thanks, brother.
Likewise, Dylan. Appreciate it. Thank you.
This has been a production of FrameSet. We're trying something new here and plan to make a whole lot more of these. So light up the comment section with feedback. Thank you.